Thanks everybody for showing up. This is the town hall meeting for the Charter Project of Mendocino County, featuring Paul Cienfuegos, who I like to call our keynote speaker. This is what, number 6 with Paul, or 5?
This is the 6th one with Paul.
This is the 6th one with Paul, so we've been all over the county this week. We're here to discuss issues regarding the potential for Mendocino County to switch over from a charter county, from a general law county as it currently is, to a charter county. So we've got a couple of things going on. First, I want to just remind everyone that we do have street signs if anyone wants to grab a sign, and we've got food in the back, and any kind of small donation that may help our campaign would be well appreciated. If you like what we're working on here, we could surely use some support. We're going to start today, just to let you know about the agenda, with Robin Sunbeam. She has a PowerPoint that she's put together to discuss what the Charter County is all about. Then we'll have a couple of people running for Charter Commissioner 2 that will give about a 5-minute speech or so to introduce themselves, and then we've got more people running for Charter Commissioner in the audience, so we'll give them just a minute to introduce themselves so you get to know the people on the ballot for Charter Commissioner just a little bit. This is all coming up on the June 7th ballot for Measure W. So after you meet the Charter Commissioners, then we'll have Paul Cienfuegos speak, and he'll have the potential for including, should Measure W pass and the Charter Commissioner gets to work, it's a possibility that we could put some community rights language in our charter, and this is what Paul specializes in, so he can tell you about during that phase of the process. If the Charter Commission chooses, this is a potential tool that we can use here in Mendocino County to customize our local government and empower the people here. And then after that, we'll have a little Q&A session, and we'd love to have as many questions as you have or any comments that you may want to. At that point, we'll just have a conversation so that you can have any questions answered that you may have. So without further ado, Ms. Robin Sunbeam.
Yay!
Woo!
I am running for Charter Commissioner as well, so just so you can know, my name is Doug McKenty.
Yay.
So I'll be one of the 17 on the ballot. Thanks.
So, why should Mendocino not be a general law county and transition to become a charter county? Thank you for this opportunity to talk to you today. My name is Robin Sunbeam, and I am one of the Charter Commission candidates. We're working toward making Mendocino a home rule county with home rule authority. We would like Mendocino to become a charter county so that we can have more control over the issues that matter to the people who live here.
Yeah.
And so that the politicians in Sacramento will have a little less influence. So as you can see, oh, where's my little pointer? I have to get my pointer. As you can see, in the California Constitution, it clearly says all people are by nature free and independent and have inalienable rights. Well, the early founders who wrote this Constitution believed that inalienable rights were life, liberty, and property. Now, an inalienable right is something that's not granted by any state or law. It's just by virtue of being alive. It's a right granted by the Creator. And so apparently they thought that included property. I'm not sure myself about that, but anyway, the other more important part is that it says very clearly, all political power is inherent in the people. Government is instituted for our protection, security, and benefit, and we have the right to alter or reform it when the public good may require. That is a fundamental tenet of both the California Constitution, and it's also in the Is it in the Bill of Rights? No, it's in the Declaration of Independence. So as you can see here, oh, I said that already. Now, some people think becoming a charter county is something crazy and unique, and you know, it's something that's never been done before. But about 100 years ago, there was a whole movement around the world to become home rule. Home rule. Mahatma Gandhi published a book called Home Rule in India in 1911. And so at that time, many states in the United States became home rule states. California became a home rule state also in 1911, but California has a quirk in the home rules law. Charter cities have unlimited home rule, but charter counties apparently have limited home rule. And we're going to find out Tuesday morning exactly what those limits are. So as you can see, 14 counties in California already became charter counties. You know, El Dorado, Butte, Placer, and Tehama are low population, mountainous counties just like ours. And also some of the most populous counties in California, like San Francisco, San Diego, Los Angeles, Sacramento, those are charter counties as well. So, what does a county do? Well, a charter is just like a mini constitution. It grants legislative powers beyond the California Constitution, but according to Article 11, Article 11 is all about local rule, charter, home rule, cities or counties. But it does say that the charter cannot conflict with the California Constitution. And what it accomplishes is a general law county is one size fits all government. But we here in Mendocino County have some very unique needs. And we feel like we need to customize the government to fit our unique needs. So home rule also provides local autonomy and more sovereignty. And also the only way to amend the charter is by a petition of the people or by the Board of Supervisors putting it on the ballot, and only the voters can agree to amend the charter. So how is a charter county different? Well, first of all, it gives us home rule authority. The governing board here means the Board of Supervisors. So what I mean there is that the Charter Commission will write a charter, and it's not the charter that does the Charter Commission. The Charter Commission will not be another layer of government on top of the supervisors. All the Charter Commission does is they write a charter, and when the voters approve it, it's over for the Charter Commission. But I'll get to that later. So it also gives authority over all the county officers except the sheriff, DA, and assessor, which according to the Constitution must be elected, and also the supervisors must be elected, but we don't have to have 5. We need a minimum of 5. Well, we could have more than 5 supervisors. And also the best thing about the county charter is that it has the same force and effect as state law. And so I like to give the example, for example, there's really 3 levels of law in a county. The first level is a resolution by the Board of Supervisors. Now, if you all remember, the Board of Supervisors passed the precautionary principle as a resolution, but I just don't remember them ever using it. And they also passed a resolution banning smart meters, but I just think PG&E forgot. So the next level of county law is a measure, which is done by a petition of the people. And so, for example, Measure H is a measure of a general law county. Measure H, 2004, made Mendocino County the first GMO-free agriculture county in the Western Hemisphere. But Measure H is a measure of a general law county that right now the ALEC, the American Legislative Exchange Council, which generates boilerplate legislation, is put out a legislation after we became a GMO-free agriculture county. They created a legislation that prohibits counties from prohibiting GMO agriculture, and 8 states have already passed that legislation. And so California hasn't yet, but if California did, it would threaten Measure H. Measure H could be overturned by the state. But if we made a provision in the charter that says that Mendocino County is a GMO-free agriculture county, then that has the same force and effect as state law once it's been ratified by the voters. So also it'll give our county greater autonomy over our finances, over our environmental laws, and also greater authority to settle tort claims. Now, a tort is a civil lawsuit in which you sue to defend your rights. Now, the charter will give the county some rights. So we could defend those rights with tort claims if we needed to. But also, all these international trade treaties, the NAFTA, the CAFTA, the TPP, those give corporations, and worse, international corporations, also get the right to make profits, whether we like it or not. And so they could sue us in a tort claim as well, whether we're a charter county or not. So how is a charter? Recently, a couple of years ago in Tallahassee, Florida, they passed a local measure that called the anti-corruption measure that barred campaign contributions for county candidates from outside the county, and also limited the maximum amount for a single campaign contribution. That's for county candidates. And so that's something that in California you have to be a charter county to pass something like that. Also, the rights of nature. You know, if Paul Cienfuegos is going to talk to you about community rights, but in a community rights charter, we could also defend the rights of nature. We already passed Measure S. In 2014, we passed Measure S, which was a community bill of rights giving us the right to clean water and thereby banned fracking, and it also gave Mother Nature rights. So we already have that in the measure. So, you know, most importantly, a charter will lay out a future so that we have a greater role, that it would empower the voters to get more involved in our own governance and in shaping the future. So these are some of the other California counties, what they've put in their charters: oversight committees over the investment of their public funds, instant runoff voting. So instant runoff voting is a way that instead of you vote for one candidate of the several that are offered, this way you vote for your favorite, then you vote for your second favorite, and then your third favorite. And so that way your vote isn't wasted, because if your first favorite doesn't win, then your vote goes to your second choice. And if that one doesn't win, then your vote goes to the third choice. They have this in San Francisco City and County. And I mentioned the precautionary principle. I would certainly like to see the precautionary principle embedded in a county charter. But right now the county charter is not written yet, and it's a blank slate. So also another county, Santa Clara County, has no charge for for a bio in the voter information booklet. We had to pay $700 to get it in English and $900 if we wanted it in English and Spanish. So I guess you have to be rich if you want the people to know who you are when you run for office. So there's 3 methods to become a charter county. We spent 3 years and wrote 15 drafts of a charter that we tried to get the Board of Supervisors to put on the ballot. Now, Dan Hamburg was all for it. Dan Jurdy felt, he likes the idea of a charter county, but he felt that he wanted to go by way of the Charter Commission because everybody suspects what the government does, and this would be much more democratic. So John McCowan read through a couple of our charter drafts very meticulously and gave us a lot of comments, and he said very specifically, I'm not against the charter county, but I'm just not for this charter, he said. So, and Tom Woodhouse, he said all nice things about it and then stayed on the fence. And so the second method is that the Board of Supervisors could put a charter question which would lead to a charter commission on the ballot, but they wouldn't do that either. So the third method is a petition of the people, which we got, and thank you all of you for signing the petition, and it became Measure W. So that once, if Measure W passes, well, that's the next slide. So I urge you to vote yes on Measure W. That is stage 1. Stage 1 just opens the door to the possibilities of what we could have in a custom-made government structure, a custom-made charter. So the charter commissioners, any registered voter could have run for charter commissioner, any registered voter in the county, that is, and 17 brave individuals stepped up to do public service, which is unpaid. It's voluntary. Even though we're elected, it's voluntary. So you get to vote for 15 of the 17. You get 15 choices. And so the 15 with the highest number of votes become the Charter Commission. And so these are the names of the people, of the 17 people who have stepped up to run for Charter Commissioner. So what will it do for our county? Well, as I said before, it'll open the door to some new possibilities. It's going to set a direction for our future goals. So instead of being reactionary, instead of the Board of Supervisors being reactionary, we'll be visionary.
Yeah.
So it customizes the government to the unique needs of Mendocino County, and it gives flexibility to deal with ongoing changes. So also, it'll empower the people to take part in our own grassroots self-governance. It'll give us an opportunity to have a much greater say in how the county is run. And it makes sure that democracy stays alive and works for us here in Mendocino County. So what will happen in this election? You get to vote yes or no on Measure W, but you vote yes. And if Measure W wins, then the 15 candidates with the most votes will be elected, and they have to write the charter, and there's no time limit in California for how long it'll take to write the charter. If Measure W doesn't win, then all the trouble that the candidates went to, and the $700 we paid to put our name in the voter, all of that becomes a moot point, no longer applies. So after Measure W wins, the Charter Commission will meet and work on the draft charter till it's done. We totally intend to get input from around the county, and we'll be sending people out to gather input. We'll have places on our website to gather input, And also, we will allow community interest groups to give presentations to the charter commissioners when they meet in public. And also just the general public. So once elected, will be guided by the Brown Act, and all of our meetings will be open to the public. So when it's complete, we hand it to the supervisors and they put it on the ballot. And once it's ratified by the voters, then that's the end of the Charter Commission. The Charter Commission has done its job. So I urge everyone here and tell all your friends to vote yes on W on June 7th for home rule. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Robin Sunbeam. Yeah, it's coming along. We've been working on our messaging, and the PowerPoint, I think, is becoming clearer and clearer. So it's a complicated issue we're trying to simplify down, and I just want to reiterate what was said, which is basically that this is a process, and this is what we're calling stage 1. When you vote for Measure W, you give us a chance to write the charter. Some people have come out and said, you know, oh, we don't like Measure W because maybe I don't like this issue that may get put into a charter later on. That's not actually what Measure W is about. Measure W is because there's no charter. There are no issues. So I like to describe it in terms of stage 1. Give us a chance. Let the commission write the charter. Then we can have a stage 2. The commission is writing the charter, and you'll get an opportunity to vote on that charter at the end of stage 2. So if you don't like the issues that are in the charter at that point, you have a choice to vote it down then. But what we're asking is that you give us a chance to work this process out so that we can propose a charter to you sometime down the road after we've got that job done. All right, I would like to introduce our first Charter Commissioner, Mary Zelichild. She has been living in the county since 1979. Let's see, I have it. Going the usual country career route of working odd jobs, she finally found a niche at Ecology Action, John Jevons' organization, where she still works today. During her 20 years, she gradually became aware of the inequities existing in the world, particularly in the realm of agriculture. 10 years ago, she was part of the dedicated crew that started the Willits Economic Localization, and she's still passionate about localizing. Somehow, she felt drawn into helping to create a public bank, and through that became part of the charter project of Mendocino County. She strongly believes that in order to have the kind of governance we want, it's up to all of us to stay actively involved in the process. No one else is going to do it for us. Thanks, Mary. Here you go, Mary Zelichild.
Well, he stole one of my lines. Because I do believe that if nobody else, we can't expect anybody else to take care of what we want. If we want to have something happen, we have to do it ourselves. And there was an article in the Willits News last week that really made me realize that we've got to keep our eyes open. We've got to keep hanging in there and make noise when things are not going as we'd like them to go. Because the article was about how the state government, after they had passed, after we had passed Prop 13, the state government found there were deficits. Imagine that. And so just little by little, they have taken the money from the county's property taxes and are using it for their own, for their own use. There's a name for that, which I can't think of at the moment. But so it's like we can't just, vote for the people that we think will do well for us and just then kind of lay back and say, oh, well, I've done this and that's it. Got to keep our eyes open. We've got to do this sort of thing. We've got to come every once in a while and change things, because we are at a time of great change all over the world, certainly here in Mendocino County. And I think we're all experiencing this in our lives too. There are many, many, many changes that are happening. And we need to keep flexible. We need to stay flexible ourselves. We need to keep our government flexible. So as things change, the government is able to change to meet those new needs. And at this point, I think that having a charter is one of the best ways to make this happen. So vote yes on Measure W.
Thanks, Mary. That was Mary Zella-Child. Our next featured speaker who is running for Charter Commissioner is Michael Burgess. He's a retired spacecraft electronics engineer. Michael brings attention to detail and getting the job done right. He wants to see the prospective charter be solid, addressing the weak points of the existing system and enhancing the quality of life for all county citizens. Currently, Mike is an officer of the Little Lake Grange here in Willits, of course, and volunteering his cooking skills in the kitchen for the monthly pancake breakfast. So thanks a lot, Michael.
Woo!
And here you go, Michael Burgess.
So my name is Michael Burgess. I'm running for the position of Charter Commissioner. I don't have a candidate statement in the ballot, just my name and past location. I didn't have $700 to print out a bunch of pages, so that's what it is.
Yeah.
What is a charter and what does a commissioner do? And why would I want either? Same thing I asked myself when this first came up months ago. The answer surprised me so much that I decided that I wanted to make this choice happen for our county to be able to improve everyone's quality of life. A charter county is different than a general law county. You don't see the difference driving down the highway, but it's there. California's got 58 counties, of which 14 are charter counties, the rest being general law counties. Charter counties are as large as San Bernardino, temperate as San Diego, as close by as San Francisco, and as empty as Alpine County. So what? What is that a charter county can make many more choices than a general law county can. I like the choices. I don't like being told what to do. I would like the whole county to be able to make the choice of becoming a charter county. How does that work? First, we elected a volunteer group of 15 charter commissioners. We are volunteers, unpaid. We bring our own pens and papers to the table. Commissioners meet and draft up a new charter for the county. We need your input to tell us what you want in that charter. It's not going to be easy. Everyone wants this, everyone wants that, everyone else wants the other thing. So it's going to take a fair amount of time to compile all these wants that people want, put it together, and see what will actually be passable and be something that can go and get elected and voted for by the people when we present the charter. We do not replace the current county supervisors. We just come up with a new playbook for them to work with. It'll be a lot like the existing playbook. There's going to be some new plays in it. When the Charter Commission submits the draft charter to the people for a vote, and it passes, the Charter Commission goes away, and the existing county supervisors are just given this new piece of paper that says, this is how you run the county, this is how the people want you to run the county. We're not going to be there. We're not going to be new supervisors. We're just coming up with new papers for them. Besides your vote, what do we want from you? Feedback. We want your views of what is working, what we must keep this way, what's working, what we don't get rid of. We need to find out what's broken, what doesn't work for you. You want to fix it. Tell us how you want it fixed. reading the local paper. Every week, every month, I see something that is broken. The county's not doing this, the county's not doing that. Supervisors point at that one, supervisors point at that one. Not my fault, somebody else has done that. So the Measure W has set up a wind tunneling website, which will be in the information on the back table. It's a place you can go to online, just fill out what you think is good, what you think is bad, what you want to see, what you want removed. We'll try to take all that data and mash it all together and come up with something. Not all the wishes will come true, but when we know what they are, we'll try to work in enough options to make it realizable. Some will be written into the charter. Some can be amended into the charter as time goes by later on. Try to put everything into the draft charter. Would just make it so big it'd be unworkable. So we're going to start with the most important essentials and build on it from there. The cost. Somebody's brought up cost. Mostly it's minor. Just the county attorney that reviews what the draft charter is. There's going to be a meeting room. The meeting rooms are sitting there empty right now. They're not going to have to build a new building. They're not going to pay a salary. Much as we wish they would, but. And the voter pamphlet, it's going to be a general summary of the charter. You can write to the elections office to get the full draft of the charter. So it's not even going to be an extra 5 pages in the voter pamphlet. It's going to be a paragraph. I don't know. I don't see where the extra cost comes out of. Why Michael Burgess? Why not? I'm a retired spacecraft electronics engineer. I think and plan. My past designs were launched and had to work with no recourse, so every angle and contingency had to be planned for in advance. Business dealings, like writing the charter, should follow the same rules. What is the function? How to make it work simply, and with as few as possible parts to break. The house my wife and I designed and had built works very well, much as we had intended. I believe I can help the Charter Commission accomplish pretty much the same. There's printouts and some information on one of the back tables back there about the charter and the commissioners. There's information on the web pages that you can get a hold of back there. And what do I want to do on the charter? I want to be able to protect the natural bounty we have here. I'd like the county to be able to insulate itself from another Wall Street bank failure fiasco. To be able to make its own laws as suit a rural county instead of 4 remote, large cities telling the state what laws to make and apply to everybody. Apply the precautionary principle. Promote small, diverse farming for microclimates versus large-scale monocrop. All of that's possible with a charter and all at risk without one. Thank you.
All right, thanks a lot. That was Michael Burgess. Okay, now I think we're just going to take a few minutes. There are, I think, 6 other charter commissioners sitting in the room right now, so if you don't mind coming up for a second, if you feel like it, just to put a face to the name so that everybody here can do it, and we'll just give you 30 seconds to a minute to discuss, the most important issues. Robin?
They're candidates, not commissioners yet.
Oh, sorry. Yes, the candidates for the Charter Commission. All right, well, let's start with Jed Davis. Here we go.
My name is Jed Davis from Potter Valley, California. I'm an aquaponic farmer and a foreclosure defense fighter. And I'm interested in stopping unlawful foreclosures and keeping our neighbors and family members in their homes, and stopping the banks from selling the homes illegally, which I could talk for hours and hours on. And but mostly I want to listen to what the rest of our county wants and do my best to make the comprehensive charter and listen to your opinions.
Hello, I'm Ellen Rosser, a retired English professor from Sac State. So I'm used to researching and writing, so I'd like to use those skills to help with the charter. My main concern is the economy of the county. You probably know we're $182 million in debt right now because of the recession that the banksters caused. And I'd like to have us have a county public bank that would help our economy, keep our money local, and maybe we can use it to help pay off the debt. That's my concern.
Good afternoon. I'm David Souter. I'm from Point Arena. My main concern is that this is my county, this is your county, and this is our county. And what we want is the opportunity, and we have the right, to have a charter that's written that reflects the will of the people of the county. And I'd like to be your representative. We'll be taking in all kinds of information. We'll prioritize it and put it in a framework that will reflect all of the wishes and the aspirations of the people of Mendocino County. And then it'll be submitted to the voters, and then we'll pass it. So please do not pass up this opportunity to give ourselves a democracy and self-determination. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Robin Sunbeam, and I'm running for Charter Commissioner. And, you know, I started seeing how it just seemed like since Citizens United, corporations seem to have more power over our government than the people do. And even though we're the sovereign people, apparently our elected representatives seem to respond more to these big corporations than international corporations. And so I just realized that these corporations have stolen the future of my children economically and of all of our children. And I really needed to step up and do something about it. I'm not waiting for them or anyone to fix it, because they're not going to fix it. We have to fix it. I just figured, if not me, then who? And if not now, then when? And so I can't rest until I change the direction of the world toward justice, economic justice, social justice, environmental justice, distributive justice. And I want this for all of our children and for the future of the planet. And so that's one of the reasons why I decided, the main reason really, is that I realized that I can't do anything to change it in Washington, D.C. And I can't hardly do anything to change things in Sacramento. But where I do have an influence is right here in my community. And so that's why I'm running for Charter Commissioner, and that's why I want Mendocino County to become a home rule charter county. Thank you. Vote for me.
Good afternoon. Thank you for this opportunity to speak to you. I am a graduate of Berea College. My name is Agnes Woolsey, and I'm running for the Charter Commission. I worked my way through college and got a degree in art, and I've learned to think outside of the box. And I believe this charter is going to be one of those events. I am very anxious that we get a yes vote from the voters, because this will give us the opportunity to write a charter, and we will endeavor to get your input to make this a charter that can be passed, and we'll have sponsors from various sectors of the community, conservative, liberal, and whatever else there is. So thank you.
Hi, my name is Keith Weiner, and I've taught special ed for 36 years in Fort Bragg. I've been in the county for 40 years. And one of the things I've found is that there's so many things going on nationally and statewide that affect us locally. I think in the past we used to say, think local, act globally. I think now we're at the stage we need to think local and act local. We need to take care of business in our county. And one way to do that is through a charter. And the charter will give us the possibilities of determining our future. And what is that future? Who will direct it? Outside interests, or we, the people of Mendocino County? And I think the charter will open up the doors, as mentioned before, to those possibilities that we can lead our future. And I think the charter will also give us a chance to protect our county, protect our families, and protect our future. Please vote for me, Keith Weiner. Thank you.
Thanks, Keith. Thanks, everybody. And I'll just take a second to tell you a little bit about myself. I'm Doug McKenty, also running for Charter Commissioner. And basically I was the host for Open Lines on KZYX for many years. Heard over and over again people calling up. It was just an Open Lines discussion program. I used to say it was for the people, by the people, and of the people. And you could talk about whatever you wanted. And I would just get that same phone call over and over again. I'm so frustrated with what's going on in Sacramento. I'm so frustrated with Washington, D.C. How can I change things? Eventually, I just said, the only thing you can really do is help out in your community and try to strengthen your community's government, because we can do direct action here in Mendocino County that makes real change, even when we feel hopeless in terms of changing the bureaucracies in Sacramento or on the national level. So I got involved. I was on the board of directors at KZYX for a little while, tried to help democratize the programming decision-making process there, and then worked on Measure S. We included a little bit. We were only the third initiative in the country to include community rights language and prevent fracking here in Mendocino County. And so now I've moved on to the Charter Commission, and becoming a home rule county is the best way to empower our county to make choices for itself. So that's my story, and thank you to all the other Charter Commission candidates that spoke. I hope you can kind of put a face to the name and recognize the name on the ballot on June 7th when you vote yes for Measure W. So, thanks. So our featured speaker for this evening is Paul Cienfuegos. Paul worked for 17 years up in Humboldt County with an organization called Democracy Unlimited. He then moved up to Portland to talk about, and he helped form the Community Rights PDX organization to promote the community rights notion up there in Oregon. And he is currently starting and a founding member of the Community Rights Groundwork, which is now a national organization. So this concept of community rights is starting to spread around the county, and Paul has been one of the foundational workers in that area. And again, just to be clear, phase 1 and phase 2, right now, we just want you to think about, would you like to be a home rule charter county? And what Paul is talking about is the potential of even strengthening our charter even further. So a charter is more powerful law than a general law county, which is just a one-size-fits-all situation. If we choose in phase 2, we can put some community rights language into that charter that could help to strengthen our capability to make local choices and be self-determining here in Mendocino County as well. So thank you very much to Paul Cienfuegos for giving us this idea that we may put in the charter during phase 2. Thanks, Paul. Here you go, Paul Cienfuegos.
Well, it's been a real honor for me to be circulating around the county
This is the 6th of 6 public forums that I was invited to do a speech at. And as Doug said, I was a resident of Humboldt County for 17 years, lived all over the county, and have been coming down to Mendocino County to share my expertise on community rights for almost 20 years. And some of these fabulous candidates, some of the 17 candidates who are running, some of them have been friends of mine for 10 or 15 years. So that's also pretty fun for me to be just one county from where I spent a lot of years. But I now live in Portland because I lead workshops and give talks all over the United States on creating a lot more power, a lot more authority at the local level through town or city or county government. And it became an absolute impossibility to get around the country from Humboldt County with an airport that sends you almost nowhere and no train and virtually no bus. So I left, unfortunately. But so I want to start by rereading something that was in the PowerPoint that Robin read, which is this really extraordinary paragraph. I'm sounding very echoey. Am I sounding okay out there?
Yeah.
Okay. This extraordinary paragraph that's in the California Constitution, and similar language is in every state constitution in the United States. Some are even more revolutionary than yours, some a little less so. But it's fun for me because as I travel around the country giving talks and workshops, I get to let people know in those states what their constitution tells them, and they're always shocked at the political power they have constitutionally. So I'll remind you of what was in the PowerPoint a few minutes ago. Article 2, Section 1. All political power is inherent in the people. Can't really get any more clear cut than that. Government is instituted for their protection, security, and benefit. And they, the people, have the right to alter or reform it, that being government, when the public good may require. That the people have the right to alter or reform government when the public good may require. It's very clear. Now, that's obviously not how most citizens feel at this point in the United States. They don't really feel like they have that political power. And there's some really good reasons why they don't feel like, and I'm assuming some of you are in that category of they. And that is that throughout our 200 plus years in the United States, the elite, the 1%, the powers that be, who have always been trying to turn this country right from the start into just another empire, they have really been threatened by people power right from the beginning. In fact, James Madison, who's one of the primary drafters of the Constitution, said the primary purpose, this is an exact quote, the primary purpose of government is to protect the opulent minority from the majority. This is the primary founder of the U.S. Constitution. The primary purpose of government is to protect the opulent minority from the majority. Okay, so we've been living in a society for more than 200 years that was designed to look like a truly democratic system. But many people would argue, and I'm one of them, that it was designed to not actually work as a truly democratic system. And one of the ways that that power was removed from people was at the local level, that right from the start in the United States, after the American Revolution, people thought, I mean, it was truly an authentic revolutionary struggle that happened in what became the United States as colonists separated from Britain Empire. And one of the things that they assumed would happen immediately is that local self-governing authority would be part of the deal, that that's part of what they had fought for. And in the very early drafts of our first state constitutions, we start with 13 colonies becoming 13 states, and in many of those early state constitutions, there's direct evidence of this commitment to local self-governing authority. So, for example, you see in the early Pennsylvania Constitution that comes straight out of the Revolution, which was called the Declaration of the Rights of the Inhabitants of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. That's what it was first called before it was called the Constitution of Pennsylvania. And here's just one paragraph. This is a post immediately after the Revolution. That government is, or ought to be, instituted for the common benefit, protection, and security of the people, nation, or community, and not for the particular emolument or advantage of any single man, family, or set of men who are only part of that community. And that the community hath an indubitable, unalienable, and indefeasible right to reform, alter, or abolish government in such manner as shall be by that community judged most conducive to the public wealth. That there was an absolute solid understanding, and it's in the source documents, that local self-government was an inherent right of a sovereign people. Now these days, your own government will say, well, actually no, sovereignty exists at the state level, not at the local level. That you actually have no self-governing authority at the local level constitutionally at all. That's what you would be told if you talk to higher levels of government today. And so the idea of, do we the people have an inherent right to govern ourselves, has been contested territory since the American Revolution. That it was clearly part of the goal of the revolutionaries who fought. But it's been contested ever since. Now, when we the people, in the first decades after the American Revolution, were white property men, which is do people know that that's the only people who actually had personhood after the American Revolution? And for most of the first century in the United States, unless you were white and male and owned a certain minimum required amount of property as defined by the state you lived in, you weren't a person under law. You didn't exist with rights. You were invisible in the system of law that existed. And in that system, so only white property men could vote. Now, when only white property men can vote in local government affairs, the elite is pretty comfortable with how they're going to vote, because it's the elite who votes. Does that make sense? White property men. And historians will say that white property men category is somewhere between 1 and 10% of the human beings that were alive at that time. There's contested numbers there. But it's a small group. By the late 1800s, women were mobilizing for the vote. Men without property were mobilizing for the vote. Black people were mobilizing for the vote. And so by the time you get to the late 1800s, it actually starts mattering to the ruling elite who gets to vote in local elections. And so what you see is, early on after the American Revolution, local government has massive authority to pretty much decide anything that the public wants them to decide. But as more and more of the human population become persons under law with the right to vote, more and more authority is stripped from municipal government. So that by the time we get to the present day, local government has very little authority to protect your health and welfare, because there's too many people who the elite would call the rabble who get to vote, right? The unwashed masses, the bewildered herds, one of our founders called the people here in the room today. You don't look too bewildered to me, but that's how you were thought of. Many of us were thought of once upon a time. And so we have today this absolutely bizarre situation where the California Constitution, the other state constitutions, the preamble to the U.S. Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, all make it very clear that we are the sovereign people with self-governing authority, that we have authority to alter, reform, or abolish government when we see it necessary. And yet, for almost the entire 200 years as well, there has been one new structure of law that's kind of been placed on top of that sovereignty to try to squash it and make it irrelevant. And that has been going on for a very long time. And I'm going to talk briefly about 3 structures of law that within conventional lawmaking at the municipal or county government level, at the local government level, these 3 structures of law make it very difficult for your local elected officials to actually protect your health and welfare.
to actually protect the local environment from harm. That in fact, because of these three structures of law, at the local level, it's illegal for your local government to pass the laws they would need to pass to protect your health and welfare. It's actually illegal. Now, most people don't know this, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist, I swear, so I'm not telling you anything that you can't prove to yourselves if you look in the right places in our history books. Here's the three structures of law, very, very briefly. And I do a weekend-long workshop on all of this history stuff. In fact, I've done weekend-long workshops in this room twice in the last decade. First structure of law, state preemption. State preemption exists in all 50 states. It's very simple. It says that if the state government regulates a certain kind of corporate activity, in other words, regulates means to allow. You don't regulate something that you're banning, that you're prohibiting. So to regulate is to allow or to normalize a certain behavior. So, and we're talking specifically about corporations, usually when we're talking about regulations. So if the state regulates big box stores, or if the state regulates clear-cut logging, these are all things they do regulate, and if the state regulates GMO agriculture, or factory farms, actually I guess GMO agriculture is not, I always forget, is this the state that hasn't? Robin, help me for a second.
No, we didn't go for the boilerplate. They didn't do it in California.
So you don't regulate GMO agriculture in California yet. Is that correct? Lucky you. Okay. So if the state regulates a corporate activity under state preemption, the local government, the municipal or county government, is not allowed to ban that activity. If the state regulates, legalizes, normalizes, a local can't ban it. A local government, elected by you, can't ban that activity. That's state preemption. Well, that's a whole bunch of power right there, gone from your local elected officials. Second structure of law, Dillon's Rule, D-I-L-L-O-N''S, named after John Forrest Dillon, Forrest with 2 R's, for those of you who are taking notes. John Forrest Dillon was a late 1800s Iowa State Supreme Court judge who had an idea. He was one of the ruling elite. He was a state Supreme Court judge. So his idea, he just started integrating into his judicial decisions in the state Supreme Court of Iowa. Don't we all wish that we would have an idea that would instantly become state law because we like our idea? So that was Mr. Dillon. And Dillon's Rule starts to be integrated into Iowa law and then ultimately across the United States in the early 20th century when the U.S. Supreme Court integrates Dillon's Rule into its deliberations. And Dillon's Rule says that the proper relationship between state government and local government is that of parent to child.
Oh, God.
That's the right response. So, that the local government does not have inherent governing authority. Local government only has the authority that is granted to it by state government. That in fact, local government is a mere subset of state government, no inherent decision-making authority at all. That's Dillon's Rule. And that in fact, state government, with the stroke of a pen, can dissolve local government. And if you've noticed, that's what the governor of Michigan has been doing lately. He's been dissolving city councils and replacing them with emergency managers that he appoints, who now have entire authority over the population of a city, right? He's been dissolving local governments. That's something you can do under Dillon's Rule. About 40 of 50 states are Dillon's Rule states, and this is one of them. So that's the second structure of law. The third structure of law, and I'm kind of whizzing through these pretty quickly, is corporate constitutional rights. That for 197 years, business corporations have been winning constitutional rights through the Supreme Court, almost entirely. Never through legislation. No state government, no federal government, no governor has ever said, hey, let's give this new right to business corporations as a class. It's all been through the courts, mostly through the Supreme Court. 197 years of corporations winning First Amendment free speech rights and property rights and contract rights and privacy rights and religious freedom rights, etc., etc. So you put these three structures of law together, which are all hidden in plain sight, and what you end up with is a municipal government that looks like it's free to protect the health and welfare of the people, if they so demand it, but are so constricted that they have almost no governing authority at the local level. And now you enter into what is exciting right now going on in your county, which is creating a home rule charter. And you immediately run up against this language in the state law about home rule charters that says that you can do anything you want as long as it doesn't violate state law. Well, state law says that corporations are persons, as does your state constitution. State law says that, I just blanked on what I was going to say next, so I'll skip over that. So between the state law and state constitution and these three structures of law, once again, even if you're a home rule chartered community, county, there's still some limitation about what you're able to do. Now, it's still, I would say that it's still really exciting to move forward into home rule chartering, because if you pass Measure W on June 7, and I hope that you vote yes on it, what you do is you start to create, as one of the previous speakers said, you're writing a mini constitution for your county. That's basically what you're writing, is a miniature constitution for your county. And if you can get past the June 7 vote with a yes, where you've now elected 15 commissioners who are going to sweep around the county and hold a lot of town hall meetings and ask the public what they want in the charter, one of the things that you could possibly put in the charter in phase 2 is language that starts to assert your rights as we, the people of Mendocino County, and start pushing back on some of these structures of law that for decades, in some cases a century or more, really violate your self-governing authority as we, the people of Mendocino County. So I'm not saying that this is something that you can do at the moment. What you can do on June 7th is say yes to the process of creating a home rule charter and voting for 15 candidates. You'll end up with 15 candidates who become commissioners. And once you're in that second phase after June 7, that's when it could really get exciting. And you're going to get to decide, as part of that larger public conversation, what is it that we, the people of Mendocino County, want in the way that we interact with government. In fact, I mean, really, the opportunity exists for you to go even further and ask yourselves questions like, what is county government for? What is county government for? And I've come up with 4 questions that kind of dig into that in a way that is a little bit more accessible. And these are the sorts of questions that you could choose to be grappling with if a yes vote wins on June 7. 4 pretty simple questions, not simple answers. And I get excited about the thought of roundtables in town hall meetings of people having these conversations across the political spectrum with each other. Question 1, what is county government currently doing that you really appreciate that it does? Question 2, what is county government currently doing and you wish it wouldn't? Because it interferes in rights, or it causes problems with sustainability, structures, etc., etc. What? Question 3. What does county government currently not do, and you wish it would? Because if it did, it would be easier, let's say, to protect your local environment, or to protect a challenged group of a subset of the population whose rights are being violated currently, something like that. Question 4. What is county government currently not doing, and you're really glad it's not? Okay, so that covers the bases. That covers the 4 bases. And I get really excited when I think about people from across the political perspectives in a local place kind of putting their ideological rigidity on the shelf for an evening and simply talking about what is government for. What do we want government to do for us, and what is it doing currently that we wish it wouldn't? Right? And I think those 4 questions get to the heart of the matter in a way that we can shelve our rigid ideological places where we assume that, oh, I could never talk to a Republican or a Green or a Libertarian or a whatever, because we wouldn't be able to see eye to eye. That when you're talking about what is our relationship with law and with governance, and understanding that we the people have ultimate self-governing authority, then it actually can get really exciting, and you can get beyond those blinders or that tunnel vision that I think so many people are stuck within. The last thing that I want to say is that just last November in Grant Township, Pennsylvania, the very first ever community rights home rule charter was passed by the voters, Grant Township, Pennsylvania. And just to be clear, so my work is about community rights, which goes a little further than what you're doing with the home rule charter campaign right now. You have the choice once you get past a yes vote on June 7 to decide, do we want to create a home rule charter that creates more democratic opening within the structures of law that we're allowed, which would be a great thing? Do we want to go further than that and push against these three structures of law that violate our rights at the local level that I've named? And then you get into more contested legal territory, where you're challenging laws that were written by people who've been dead for a century, but which are considered quote-unquote settled law. And if you go into that territory, then you're going to start to get pushback from state government, from corporations, etc. But it's very interesting territory to enter into. And that's what Grant Township did in the first ever community rights home rule charter that passed in November. It's 7 pages long, and if you go to MendocinoCountyCharter.org and go to the section that's called Downloads, you'll see the charter. It's there, and you can read it. Mendocino, it's the, again, Grant Township Home Rule Charter. And the community rights movement has been going for about 16 years, and we've now helped 200 communities in 9 states to pass community rights ordinances that push back on these illegitimate and unjust structures of law that violate our rights as we the people in our local communities. So this would be an exciting, if the county's residents and the charter commissioners decided that they wanted to push against those edges, you would be joining the community rights movement at that point, you know, a few months from now, if you can get past the June 7 yes vote. That's the first goal. And you'd be joining 200 communities in 9 states that have all passed legally binding, locally enforceable ordinances that enshrine the right of a local community to govern itself, that strip corporations of their constitutional rights, and that ban specific harmful but legal corporate activities at the local level. That's what our ordinances do. A home rule community rights charter could go even beyond that, and enter into some pretty bold and brave new cultural territory and legal territory. So you could make national history if you wanted to go that far. And I have community rights materials. I have books and CDs and DVDs on the table back here that I would love to sell you, and I have lots of free handouts as well that I'd love for you to take. And it's been an honor to be part of this roadshow. Thank you very much.
So now I'd like to open it up for questions from anyone, if anyone has a question. And I don't want to monopolize the answers, so if any of the other charter commissioners feel like adding to my answer, or if you have a community rights question, then Paul certainly can answer it, but go ahead.
If, step 1, we pass Measure W, we have 15 commissioners, they write something, and it goes on a future ballot. It's going to be a trick for that commission to come up with something that they think will be acceptable and get enough votes from everybody. Let's just say that they don't succeed, that it has something in it that doesn't sit well with enough of the electorate, and they don't pass that charter that was proposed and put on the ballot. does the commission then go back to the drawing board? Does it disband? Does everything just go away as if nothing happened? Or what?
That's a great question, and according to our current interpretation, it may be that we have to start all over again, but it appears from our current interpretation that at that point we'd have the opportunity to follow the process of revising the charter, so we're not specifically sure if the Charter Commission would then be in charge of revising it, or if it would just go to the Board of Supervisors at that point. In our PowerPoint, we saw the 3 different ways that a charter could be written. So it could be that we could use any of those 3 ways. My feeling right now is that once the people say, they pass Measure W and they say, yes, we want to be a charter county, then we are going to have to produce a charter that the people will pass. That's my feeling. I'm not sure. And we are talking with a specialist tomorrow, or Tuesday, excuse me, at the Board of Supervisors meeting. Jeff Neal is coming, and we're going to ask him that question so we can give you a better answer, and we'll post that up on the website, mendocinocountycharter.org, as soon as we know for sure exactly how that works out, because that was the great question that we all have, actually, so thanks for asking. Does anyone else have a question?
By what margin do you need to win? Do you need 50% or 66?
It's just 50%, 50% plus 1. Yeah. The interesting thing about that, I wonder if there's a specific tax in the charter that we put in, then I do wonder if we would have to get 2/3. It appears to be that way, and that might be another question we can ask Jeff, but I haven't heard anybody promoting any kind of special taxes in the charter, so we'd have to run into that one later on down the line here. Another question?
I heard none of the 4 cities are into the charter. Why?
I don't think that's necessarily true. We went to Point Arena as the only city council that we've really talked to so far, and they didn't want to vote for a specific endorsement, but there was really only one guy on the council that had a problem with it. So I don't know where you heard that, but that's not our understanding.
And Point Arena was in the process of changing people.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So they really didn't have enough people there, I think, to authorize a vote one way or the other.
So the 14 existing charter counties, is there a link on the website where we can see what their charters say?
Yeah.
Online.
Yeah, we've done the research into that, and also we have a flyer out here that have at least a synopsis of why they became chartered, and what issues were important to them that they put in their charter, so you can check that out. It's on the website as well.
And you can look online, just the charter of Placer County or San Francisco or whatever, and find all of the details.
All right, anybody else? Sure. Yeah, here you go.
Thank you. In response to one of Paul's questions, one of the things that the county cannot do, because it's preempted by the state right now, is regulate pesticides and herbicides. And a lot of people in the county is very concerned about that. I would also mention that Measure V on the ballot is about leaving intentionally killed trees in the forest, and so it approaches it as a public nuisance rather than as regulating herbicides. But it sort of gets there a different route. I am just wondering if, for example, that were to be put in to the county charter that was then brought back to the public for a vote, that we assert our right to regulate herbicides at the county level. And assuming it passed, what would our blowback be? What kind of legal ramifications would come down on our heads for that?
It's a number of really good and complicated questions and answers. So first of all, within the community rights movement, we wouldn't even say regulate pesticides, because again, that allows them and makes them normal. We would say prohibit them. We would say certain classes of pesticides we're going to prohibit in Mendocino County, which is different than regulating. because they're simply too dangerous, like neonicotinoids, for example, that are killing our pollinators. Within a conventional environmental protection ordinance or within a conventional home rule charter that's completely legal within the state's structure right now, you couldn't ban certain pesticides for the reason that you just said. State preemption doesn't allow it. If you step outside of these structures of law and you write a community rights ordinance or a community rights home rule charter, then what you do is you put additional language in your charter that says that we are going to nullify the enforceability. It's right, the language is right in the charter. We're going to nullify the enforceability of state preemption within our home rule charter when state preemption violates our inherent authority to protect our health and welfare and our environment's health and welfare. So all of a sudden, that pesticide is banned legally under our county law, and because we've stepped outside of these structures of law that say state preemption always trumps our ability to protect ourselves. Now, that, without question, is likely to draw attention from the state or from Monsanto or from some other corporation. And at that point, it is likely that a lawsuit would be drawn to the county. And I'm trying to answer this as briefly as I can because it's a really big topic, but within the community rights movement, we've stopped being afraid of being sued because we understand that if we're ever going to challenge these structures of law, which are all considered quote-unquote settled law, i.e. don't even bother, right? We're up against some very big, we're entering into some very big political and legal battles. And so these 200 communities in 9 states that have already done this have reached the point where they're less worried about being sued as a local government than they are about environmental devastation or destruction of their local economy or whatever. So you enter into that with an assumption that you're going to be sued and that you're just going to have that be part of the political process. But interestingly, of the 200 communities that have passed these over the last 16 years, 95% of them have never been legally challenged. So, you know, that's an interesting fact. And I could go on and on for another 5 minutes, but that was long enough.
Thanks, Paul. Yeah, I mean, I just want to reiterate in terms of that, the phase 2 conversation. So after we get and we pass Measure W and we elect the 15 charter commissioners, then we have a huge spectrum of what we can put in the charter. We could just, you know, here's the county code as it stands right now, but we're going to switch it over and be a charter county instead of a general law county, and that still gives us some of the empowerment that Robin was talking about in the PowerPoint, just switching over to a charter county without really doing any kind of a radical shift in any, or attacking any particular issues. And then there becomes this spectrum of, well, we could add some community rights language that just, you know, empowers us a little bit more, or, you know, we could really hammer out a lot of issues, and that's going to be up to that process of that phase 2 process to find out what you all want to see in a charter. Then we'll actually write the document and we'll have the larger dialogue about that campaign, and you'll be able to choose after phase 2. Ellen?
We have an advantage in that we are a poor rural county. And so we can get away with things that big states or counties can't. Nobody challenged the no GMO growing in the county, right? I mean, Montana spent how much, millions, billions to stop it at the state level, but we can do it because we're small and rural. And I think the same will be true of what we put in the charter. I've noticed in looking at some of the other charters that sometimes counties have put into that charter, it's only their county council said, this isn't legal. But they put it anyway and nobody challenged it.
So what are we doing at the Tuesday meeting? What time and what's going on?
Okay, at 9:30 this in the morning on Tuesday, the supervisors are asking some questions of a charter expert. What's the name of the county, the state?
It's the California State Association of Counties. The man's name is Jeff Neal. That's GEOFFNEILL. And he is from CSAC. and he's apparently a charter expert. Norman Duvall called him up the other day. Oh, I should get in front so everyone doesn't have to crane their necks at me. So Norman Duvall called him up the other day and asked him our list of, a dozen questions, and he said he didn't have the answers. So we're hoping that he looks them up and he'll have the answers by Tuesday morning.
Why is this at the soups?
What's your question?
So why is this happening at the soups meeting?
Very good question. Now, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, or 1 year ago, you would have thought that the Board of Supervisors might have done that since we were depending upon them to put the charter on the ballot. But now that it's no longer in their hands, that's when they finally call the expert to testify, and it's a lucky thing they even notified us. And so following the expert testimony by Jeff Neal will be a report from our CEO, Carmel Angelo, of the fiscal impact of Measure W. So the way we figure it, there's nearly no fiscal impact because first of all, we're all unpaid. Second of all, they may have to provide us with a room. They may provide us with IT services so we could put our notes on the website. That all just, since they already have a room, and they already have a janitor, and they already have a security guard, and they already have an IT department, it's not going to tax the county all that much. They're not going to publish the entire charter. Now it could be that we'll put 2 or 3 charters on the ballot. As Doug was saying, we'll put the narrow, very conservative charter, we'll put the expanded with everything in it charter, maybe we'll put 2 or 3 charters somewhere in between there, also on the ballot. But the number of pages in the voter information booklet is not going to be expanded that much because the whole charter is going to be on file in the county administration office. And if you want a copy, they'll mail it to you. You can also download it in PDF from our website. So the amount of money, they may even reimburse us for gasoline. I don't know. We haven't discussed it with them. But the charge, the cost to the county is going to be minimal. And what was the other question? Why now? Well, apparently, Carrie Brown, who was the one supervisor who totally ignored us for the entire 3.5 years, who never bothered to even look at any of the 15 charter drafts, she has initiated this, and with Carmel Angelo's help, they got a guy to testify. And the best thing I could figure is they're just trying to, well, Carmel keeps saying, oh, it's just an informational meeting. And I asked for equal time. And she says, oh, you know, it's just an informational meeting. I said, why now? She said, well, our supervisors need to be informed so they can represent their constituents, was her reply. And so we didn't get equal time. And we have a long list of questions. And Carmel said she's for a charter county. She came from San Diego herself. She's in favor of a charter county. She likes the idea. But why she and Carrie Brown, who never bothered to even give us the time of day, I don't know why they've initiated it at this time, maybe to find anything to, what's it called, marginalize, slanderize, you know, vilify. Maybe that's the plan, I don't know.
Maybe to help.
Yeah,
maybe to help.
Exactly. I'm kind of glad they're looking into it. It's a big change, and I'm looking forward to starting to work with them myself in terms of the dialogue. And after Measure W is passed, you know, it'll be an ongoing conversation that we'll have with the supervisors. Well, I really want to thank everybody for coming. We'll hang out for a few minutes and we can just kind of have a dialogue. I want to remind you all again that there are some signs outside we could use. We're just now getting our signage out. So if you feel like taking one and putting it in your yard, we'd really appreciate it. We have bumper stickers. Paul's got his books. We've got food back there. We could really use any kind of help that you can give. So we'd appreciate it. And
if you want to endorse.
Yes,
that's
sign
right.
up. We have a clipboard there where you can endorse this. And we're going to get our, we need volunteers. We're going to get our legitimate lawn signs in tomorrow. I think they're going to be in tomorrow with luck. And so we will deliver lawn signs to you. Just fill out our form, our endorsement form. And if you don't want to endorse and you just want a lawn sign, fill out the form. You don't have to fill out the endorsement part. So thank you very much for this opportunity to address you.